Right here. Do I need to get a little birdie and put up here so it's not wet? You got water on your nose. Hello again. William.
And Sharon.
And Reba.
Reba.
I'd like to outdoors. And we'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of Burn Friday Burn. And this is going to be a special edition. Those of you who viewed last Wednesday Word know that Sharon was on vacation at that time. She's back now.
I'm back.
And she's going to tell us all about it. But before she gets started on that, because I don't want to stop her in the middle of something, and so I'm going to go ahead and get the burn done so we can get back at this, and because I think she's got a couple things she wants to say, but we'll see. I shall be right back. Give me to hold that, please. Alright, we know the burn can't have a vacation. So let's get this thing underway so we can get back over and hear what Sharon's got to say. And get it together. So, Sharon, tell us about your vacation.
Well, it was awesome. I had a trip with my brother and my sister, which we have never done that before. And the three of us went to a town in northern Arkansas called Eureka Springs. If anyone's heard about Eureka Springs, they know it's the passion play of Christ.
Let me say this too. While she's talking about some of these things, we're going to replace us with some images that she took while she was there.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of things up there other than just the passion play. The first thing we went to is this huge statue of Jesus with his arms outstretched.
Christ of the Ozarks.
It's called Christ of the Ozarks. It
I've
really
I've
is.
heard of that.
And it is, I mean, we had a picture taken of us standing at the base of it, and it was just, I don't know, it chills all over me just being there. I know it's just a statue, but it's what the statue represents. Well, this is a place that you can go to, and it's free. There's a lot of things up in the Ozarks or in Eureka Springs that is free. Um, just outside of the statue, there was a place. It was a little chapel there where if anybody wanted to go in and pray, um, and they had people in there that if you wanted someone to pray with you, that they would. And the next place we went to, that's also free, and it just, I spent a lot of time in there, and it was called the Bible Museum. They had modern Bibles. They had Bibles from 18th century, 15th century. They had Bibles that was in all kinds of different languages. It was just amazing to see all of these different Bibles and different versions and knowing how old they were because they're all behind glass, but you could tell that they had wormholes in them and they had been deteriorating over the years, the outer cover of them and everything, and it was just, it just makes you stop and think that we have our Bible that we read, but even way back then, they had a Bible that they read, and it was just amazing to me that this little museum had all of this stuff in there.
So you could tell by looking at them, they weren't always behind glass.
They were not always behind glass. You could tell, like, the edges of them, you could tell where the pages had been turned and everything, that they definitely had been used. They were not something that sat on a shelf or anything. And then one of the places that we went to that you do have to pay for, but I didn't pay any attention to the price or anything, but it's called the Holy Land. And when you first go, and it's a like a guided tour that you're on this bus and they take you to different stops and you get off and they had at the different stops they had actors that portrayed people in the Bible. But as you get on it, when you first go in, you go through these gates, and it's supposed to be a replica of the gates of Jerusalem. And it just, when you walk through it and they tell you this, it's just like, you know, like I said, this whole trip, I was in awe the whole time. They had the Ten Commandments on stone that you could see. Um, One of the first stops that we had was where we talked to Moses, and he talked about being in the desert and so Moses told us a lot about that, and then he started talking about the tabernacle and all of the uh, different materials that was used, and just told us all about the tabernacle. And then we got to go into the tabernacle or a display of it, and in there where they had the area where they would sacrifice the lambs, and then they had a place where they cooked the meat to give to the priest and everyone. And then they had over in another section, they had a replica of the ark and the bowl that held the manna. And like I said, all of this, Moses spent a good 20 minutes telling us all about it and everything. And again, I was in awe of being able to see what it was supposed to look like, not just in a picture. And then we get back on the bus and we go to different places.
Mosquito Fighter.
Oh, poor baby. Uh, we got to talk to Peter, where he was talking about they were out fishing, and Jesus told them to, they had been out fishing all night, and they come in, and Jesus tells them to go back out. Go back out there and throw your nets out. And they said, but we've been fishing all night and didn't do any good. But they did what he told them to do, and they brought in a lot of fish. Uh, there was, at one place, they had Jesus walking on water. And that was something to see. I mean, you knew that he was walking, this man was walking on rocks or steps or whatever, just under the surface of the water, but it was to portray Jesus actually walking on water. We got to see the inn just outside the stables where Jesus was born, and we actually got in to go into the inn and see different things in there. And one of the things that I noticed is the openings going into the little rooms in the inn was real low. You would have to bend down. You would have to almost be on hands and knees going into the doorway there. And we asked about that, and the lady from the inn said the reason for this is because the Roman soldiers would like to come in and harass the Jews. And they didn't like getting off their horses. They wanted to ride their horses. So they made their doorways so small that the Romans couldn't go in on their horses to harass their, their patrons. Then they showed the mother of Jesus. And she took us into the stables, and she just told about the night that Jesus was born, and that she didn't have a place to lay her head in one of the rooms at the inn, so they came to the stables, and that Jesus was born in a manger. And then the upper room. They literally had a big, huge table laid out, like where they had the Last Supper, and they showed some of the food that was more than likely there the night of the Last Supper. And the actor there told all about it, and told about what was to come after the Last Supper.
What kind of chairs did they sit in?
They didn't.
They didn't.
No, they sat on the floor. And they had mats all the way around the tables where they literally sat on the floor. And then the very last thing of the Holy Land was a place that brought tears to my eyes, and that was the empty tomb. And we were allowed to go to that into the tomb, and they had a piece of slate or marble or whatever laid out with what would be the cloth that was around Jesus. Of course, none of these had blood or anything on them, but it was laid out like what Mary Magdalene saw when she went, and the angel told her that he was no longer there. At the end of the Holy Land tour, they took us back up front. There was the potter, and he was talking about, God is the potter, and we are the clay. And the potter would take, and he had a handful of clay, and he'd throw it down on the wheel, and he would do his foot, and he would mold the clay. And he said, and this is what God does to us. He molds us. And
So the potter's wheel didn't have an electric motor to turn
no, it didn't. And you could see him using his foot to turn it. He didn't pump it like a pedal. His foot was on top of the wheel. And you could see that. You could tell that that's what he was doing. And that was, that was another neat little thing that they had. And then they had David with his sling. and he was talking about everybody was afraid of Goliath, but he wasn't, because he knew that God was with him. Okay, that was the last of the Holy Land. And then that night we went to the Passion Play. The Passion Play, the bottom row of the seats was about the height of the buildings in the Passion Play. And we were up around.
So they're not up on a stage, they're down and
They're down.
they're down
Yeah,
so you
what
can
do
see.
they call it?
Like an amphitheater.
That's it.
Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Hosanna! It is Jesus, the Messiah! You clean the outside of the cup, but leave the inside full of filth. Fools and blind, you must first clean the inside for the outside to be clean.
This is my body, broken for you.
Jesus, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? Who is it you want? Jesus of Nazareth. I am he. Lazarus, now. Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. No. Weep for yourselves and your children.
And one Jesus, King of the Jews.
Father, into your hand I entrust my spirit.
And on the third day he will be raised up. And after 3 days they found him teaching in the temple. I have power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it up again, take it up again, to take it up again, to take it up again.
I am with you always.
I don't know of anything else to say except if you ever get a chance to see the Passion of Christ in a amphitheater like this, if you can do it, do it. It's worth your time.
All right.
I've never talked this much before.
Perhaps you can experience something else you can tell them about later on. So, I myself, I'd like to thank y'all for sitting all the way through this, so that you can share her experience. Uh, Hopefully, it's no matter whose vacation you hear about, no matter how many details they give you, there's nothing like being there and experiencing it for yourself. After hearing everything that Sharon saw while she was there, it only makes me want to go see it myself.
Yes,
Uh,
I
so
want to go back.
perhaps we'll go again so that I can see it as well. Uh, and maybe we will share that too.
Yeah, take your family.
Yeah, we'll see. uh, as you can see, our cohort, uh, she jumped down to go over here at the neighbor's fence and holler at the cat or something. And her and Shadow, I saw them go in the doggy door, so I guess she got too many mosquito bites.
Yep.
So I'll just say we'd like to thank you for joining us again for this episode of Burn Friday Burn and hearing about Sharon's visit to the Holy Land in Arkansas and her uh, experience with the Passion of Christ
Yeah.
theater. And won't you join us again next time for another Burn Friday Burn?
Yes, amen.
The Lord bless and keep you.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for sharing with us.